So we will start with the prayers all together. Om Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir-bhavatu me sada. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Veeryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vavahai. Om
Shanti Shanti Shanti
Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnanapradam Mumukshunarthaya Tattvabodho Vidhiyate. Om Namah Shivaya. Okay. So, what was the topic last class? Sorry?
We did Avastha Trayam, the Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti Avastha.
Right. So we did Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti Avastha. And before that, which was the main topic?
We were trying to find what is Atma. And so we had done the Sharira Trayam.
And then the Avastha Trayam also. So we had divided Anatma into 11 portions. Okay, and the first portion was the Sharira Trayam. Which are the three Sharira Trayam?
The Sthula, Sukshma and Karana Sharir. The gross body, the subtle and the causal body.
Right. So Sthula, Sukshma, Karana Shariram, and all these three we saw in detail. Okay. And then we saw Avastha Trayam, which are
the Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti Avastha, the waking state, the dream state and the deep sleep.
Yes. So we saw Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti Avastha also in the last class. So finally what remains?
The Pancha Kosha.
Pancha Kosha remains. Now many of you are yoga teachers, so which are the 5 Pancha Koshas?
Annamay, Pranamay, Manomay, Vijnanamay and Anandamay.
Yes, very good. So those are the 5 koshas or 5 sheaths. Okay. These are the 5. The word kosha means case or sheath or even layer. So when we say Pancha Kosha, we mean 5 layers or 5 sheaths of the human personality. And these are the 5. Now, actually, interestingly, these are not 5 new things that we are going to learn. It is actually Sharira Trayam, just in a slightly different classification. A functional classification of Sharira Trayam results in Panchakosha. And so, Annamaya Kosha is actually nothing but Sthula Shariram. Pranamaya, Manomaya and Vijnanamaya put together is nothing but Sukshma Sharira. And the last one, Anandamaya, is actually Karana Shariram. Okay, so the reason why we classify Sukshma Shariram into 3 is just based on functions. And that we will see today. What are those 3 koshas? What are their components? And why they are classified in these 3. Okay, so this is the topic for today. The Pancha Kosha. So let me just mute everybody. Right, and then we can start. So now the student is going to ask the question about which are the 5 Panchakoshas, and then the teacher answers, and then he explains each of them in detail. So we will read this one and the next one together. Okay. Panchakoshake
Panchakoshake
Annamayah Pranamayah
Annamaya Pranamaya
Manomayah Vijnanamayah
Manomaya
Anandamayashcheti Annamayakkaha
Annamaya
Annarasenaiva Bhutva Annarasenaiva Vruddhim Prapya Annarupa Prithivyam Yadviliyate Tadannamayak Kosha Sthula Shariram. Okay. So now we will see the meaning of each of the koshas. So in the previous verse, the student had asked the question, what is Pancha Kosha? And the teacher has just listed the names. Okay, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. Just the names he has listed. And at the end, he says, Cheti. Cheti just means cha iti. Cha means and in Sanskrit. Iti means this is how it is. In this manner, these are the 5 things. Okay. And then now, obviously, the student asks, what is the first one? Which is Annamaya Kosha. What is Annamaya Kosha? So, Annamayaha Kaha. The teacher answers. The first thing we can note is that he says it is the same as Sthula Shariram. So, already we have seen Sthula Shariram in detail. So, it is easy to now relate and understand. So, Annamaya Kosha is nothing but Sthula Shariram. What is Sthula Shariram? It is the physical body, the material part of the body. So the word Anna means food. Okay, it can also be extended to mean matter, but in this context, we are taking food. Mayaha, the word Maya means product. Okay, so when we say Annamaya, we say it is a product of food. So the word Annamaya Kosha becomes food modified sheath. And why are we saying it is a food modified sheath? For that, the author will give 3 justifications. Okay, 3 features why this physical body is a food dependent or food modified sheath. It is a product of food. So the very first point, the first justification he gives is that this physical body, it is born before it is, conceptualized. How does it come into creation? There is, in the father's body, there is sperm. In the mother's body, there is egg. Now, how do these sperm and egg come about? The father and the mother consume food, obviously, right? And this food, the nutrition from this food, the essence of the food is converted and used by the body. And in the reproductive organs, they manifest as sperm and egg. Then what happens? When these sperm and egg come together, fertilization happens, and that is how birth of the baby happens after some more time. So this creation, the creation of the sperm and egg is itself dependent on food, right? So that is what the author says, that the first justification he gives is that the basis for this body, the very cause of the creation of this body is food. Okay, so food, and in which form it happens? Shukra Shonita Rupa Anna, Anna Rasa. Okay, so basically Shukra is nothing but the sperm, Shonita is nothing but the egg. So when these two combine, then it results in the new life. And this obviously is dependent on food. That is what the author is trying to tell. This is the first justification, that the very creation or the very birth itself depends on food. And so this annam, food, is srishti karanam, the cause or the basis for creation. Srishti means creation and karanam means the cause or the basis. So Srishti Karanam is the cause for creation. So the number one justification is Srishti Karanam. It is the cause of creation. Okay. Then the second point, the second justification, he says, it is Sthiti Karanam. Sthiti means sustenance or maintenance. So once the sperm and the egg fertilize, what happens then? Now the fetus has to grow in the womb of the mother, right? For this, what is necessary? Food again, right? The mother has to eat food and then only the baby can grow. So what happens? It increases in size, it grows, and then it is born. Once the baby is born, now the baby is able to consume food independent. Previously, consuming food through the mother. Now, consuming food independently. But it is still dependent on food. The physical body needs the food for growth and sustenance. So as a child, what happens? The children, they increase in height and weight. So there is growth. As an adult, what happens? There is maintenance. But even for that maintenance, food is necessary. Annam is necessary. So this is sthiti karanam, the basis for the sustenance of the body. Then the third one, which is obviously laya karanam, the basis for the dissolution of the body. So when this body dies, what happens? We bury it or we burn it, put it in water. In some way, it reaches the elements. Most of the time, it is a burial for most of the physical bodies, right? Most animals, they die and then they become a part of the earth. And then what happens? Through that earth, through the merging with the earth, the new plants arise and then they are eaten or consumed by the other creatures and so on. The food cycle, right? So the grass is eaten by the deer is eaten by the lion dies, the lion's body becomes part of the soil and that soil generates fresh grass, grass is again eaten by the deer and so on. It is cyclical. It is the food cycle, right? So basically, the resolution of this physical body is to join with the earth. From dust to dust. That saying is there, right? So from matter, it is born through matter, sustained by matter, and eventually joins back to matter. So here that is what the author is telling. 3 justifications. It is Srishti Karanam, Sthiti Karanam, and Laya Karanam, the basis for the dissolution also. And now we will see it in the verse. in the line. So 1, 2, and 3 correspond to Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya Karanam. In the first one, he says, Anna Rase Naiva Bhutva. The word Anna Rasa means the nutrition or the essence of food. Bhutva means to come, having been born, to come into existence. Okay. So point 1 is that this Anna Rasa is the cause for existence or creation. Then Anna Rasa Vridhim Prapya. Vridhim is to increase, Prapya is to gain. So basically, growth is to have growth. Like how children grow in size, in height and weight. So through food only. And also sustenance. Then Anna Rupa Pritivyam Yad Viliyate. Here the word Pritivyam is referring to earth, and the word Viliyate means to dissolve. So this body joins the earth and emerges as food again, right? It becomes part of the soil. Yad Viliyate. It dissolves into the earth and becomes or is reborn in the form of food. So 3 justifications, 3 reasons. This entity that has these 3 features and is dependent on food in this way, tad annamayaha koshaha. That is called as annamaya kosha, the food modified sheath. Any questions? No? No questions? Is it clear?
It will take time to understand. Yeah. Mm,
Does it mean that the type of food that
Medha ji,
Yes.
may I ask why have we, when we had done Sthula, Sukshma, and Karana, Sharira, and these koshas represent those, why have we classified them separately?
It's just a different prakriya. Prakriya means a methodology of analysis. So this is when we talk about Pancha Kosha, it is a functional classification. So it is just a different approach to the same thing. So the author wants to eliminate all possible ideas before we go to Atma.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, but your voice is not very clear.
Is it clear now?
Okay.
Is it clear?
Not so much, but okay, go ahead.
That mean that type of food we eat determines the kind of body we will have.
Sorry?
The type of food that we eat will determine the kind of body we will have.
Partly, but not entirely.
Okay.
So a portion, if you have attended the class on Sthula Shariram, you will know that the design or the blueprint of the body is determined by the karmas. So the next food play a partial role, but not 100% role.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Nature versus nurture.
yeah. Okay.
Can't eliminate either.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. And then we will move on to the next one, which is Pranamaya Kosha, and we will read this. Pranamaya kaha.
Pranamaya kaha.
Pranadyah panchavayavah.
प्राणाद्याः पञ्चवायवः
वागीन्द्रिय पंचकम् प्राणमयः कोशः
प्राणमयः कोशः
Yeah, just I made a small mistake while pronouncing it. It is pranamayak koshaha when you're chanting. Okay, this visarga is pronounced as half k. So I told the full visarga, but that is not very correct while chanting. Okay, so now the question asked by the student is, what is pranamaya kosha? Now here the author tells the components of this pranamaya kosha. He says Pranadhyaha, prana adi, prana, etc. Pancha vayavaha. Here the vayavaha is basically Vayu. Okay. Vayu is just another name for prana. So previously we had studied Pancha Prana under the topic of Sukshma Shariram. It is one of the components of Sukshma Shariram. And there are 5 pranas, we said. And that Pancha Prana, another name for Pancha Prana is Pancha Vayu. Okay, Vayu and Prana are used synonymously in Shastra. And he starts the first one, he says Prana Adi Pancha Vayu. So obviously he is referring back to the Sukshma Shariram topic where we discuss this prana. And those 5 pranas were Prana, Apana, Samana, Udana, Dhyana. Right? So those 5 he is referring here. And he says Vag Indriya Panchakam. The word Panchakam means 5. Indriya means organ. And here Vag. Vag is basically Vak. And which is Vak Indriyam?
Mouth.
The mouth.
The organ of speech, the mouth. Right? So when he says Vak Indriya Panchakam, what is he talking about?
Motor organ.
The 5 organs of action.
The
And how do we know this? Because he says Vak Indriyam. Okay, so sometimes they say Chakshur Indriyam Panchakam. That time, what are you supposed to understand?
the sense organs.
The 5 sense organs. And when they say Vag Indriyam, you're supposed to understand Karmendriya, the 5 organs of action. Because Vak is the organ of speech and Panchakam means Vak, etc. Okay, mouth, etc. 5 organs of action. That is how this is to be understood. Okay, and so he says this is the components of Pranamaya Kosha. Basically the 5 pranas, Pancha Prana, and then the 5 Karmendriyas. Okay, so this plus this is Pranamaya Kosha. Okay, so this is fairly straightforward. We'll come back to this, but before that, we will see the others. Okay. Now we will see Manomaya Kosha. Manomaya Koshak Kaha.
Manomaya
Manascha.
Manascha
Jnanendriya Panchakam.
Jnanendriya Panchakam
Militva yo bhavati.
Militva yo bhavati
Samanomayak Koshaha.
Manomaya Kosha.
Okay. So this is about Manomaya Kosha, the mental sheath. Okay, Pranamaya Kosha refers to the pranic sheath, the energy sheath. Okay, Manomaya Kosha is the mental or the psychological sheath. Now, here again, the author is going to talk about the components of Manomaya. And all this actually we have already seen under Sukshma Sharira. So that is why the author also does not go into too much detail about what are these things. Okay. So you're supposed to connect back and relate to Sukshma Sharira. So he says, Manaha cha Jnana Indriya Panchakam. Manaha is what?
Antahkaran,
Mind.
part of Antahkaran.
Which is, which part?
The one
Mind.
which
Part of the mind.
you had explained it as to be or not to be.
Yes, the emotional or the oscillating faculty of the mind. Okay. So this manaha is part of the antakarana. Okay. Generally, people read manaha as mind, but here we have to be more specific. In Vedanta, as we proceed, each word becomes more and more specific. Okay, more and more pointed, more and more defined. So manaha is not just mind. We are talking about a particular aspect of the mind, which is the oscillating faculty of the mind, or otherwise known as the doubting faculty of the mind. It is also the seat of emotions and desires. So
I
this
left you.
is,
Good morning. I'm good. You. I hope my speaker is not on.
I again request everyone to please remain on mute when you are not speaking. Otherwise, this will be recorded. Okay. Now, so manaha, that is the seat of emotions and desires, plus the jnanendriyas, he says. Okay, which are the jnanendriyas? The 5 sense organs. What are they?
Eye, ears, nose,
Twak, Chakshu, Grana, Rasanam, and
In the order. There is a order to be followed. The reason for that order we will see later. But Shrotram, Tvak, Chakshu, Rasanam, Granam.
Grana.
Okay. There's a reason for that order. You will see that later. But as much as possible, try to stick to the order in English or Sanskrit also. So these are the Jnanendriyas, the 5 sense organs. So this mind plus the 5 sense organs, militva. Militva means together or combined. These two combined, yo bhavati. Yo bhavati means that which results through the combination of Jnanendriyas and Manaha. So that is Manomaya Kosha. Okay. So that entity, which is the combination of Manaha and Jnanendriyas. Now, why both are needed is because in order for you to know anything, you need the sense organs. And it's not enough to just have sense organs. You need a mind that coordinates and processes that information also. Okay, so either one or the other is not sufficient. They need each other for any information to become meaningful and relevant. And that is why both are mentioned. So this is about Manomaya Kosha, the components. Next, we will see Vijnanamaya Kosha. The word Vijnanamaya means the intellectual sheath. Okay, so Vijnanamaya Kosha means the intellect or the rational sheath. And the student asks, and we will read. Vijnanamayak kaha.
Vijnanamaya
Buddhi Jnanendriya Panchakam.
Buddhi Jnanendriya Panchakam
Militva yo bhavati
Militva yo bhavati
savijnanamayak koshaha.
savijnanamaya kosha.
Okay. So now the question is, what is Vijnanamaya Kosha? And he again mentions the components. He says Buddhi plus Jnanendriya Panchakam. What is Buddhi?
The intellect, it is also a part of Antakaran and
Yes, it is part of the Antakarana, and this is the decisive faculty or the rational faculty, the one that makes the decision. Okay, the one that is decisive in nature, that is Buddhi. Plus the Jnanendriyas. Now, obviously, Buddhi also needs input from Jnanendriyas, right? Information is needed before it can be processed and conclusively decided, right? So, that is why Buddhi also requires the support of Jnanendriyas. And so, that is why they are mentioned together, militva, combined or together. So, Buddhi, the intellect, plus the sense organs together, yo bhavati, what results? So, Vijnanamaya Kosha, that is called as Vijnanamaya Kosha. Okay, so now we have seen the components of all these previous three koshas, the Pranamaya, the Manomaya, and the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Till here, any questions? No questions?
Medha ji,
Yeah.
so Manomaya Kosha is also a combination of the mind and the five sense organs. And Vijnanmaya Kosha is also quite similar. Could you explain the subtle difference between the two?
Yeah, we'll get to that. But first of all, it is important to understand it is not mind. Okay, again, I will emphasize there is no, mind is a very vague thing. And so that is why we have a concept called Antakarana, the inner instrument. What we call as mind is Antakarana. But that Antakarana has four different parts or four aspects to it. And each aspect has a particular role to play. And so when we refer to the mind, we refer to these four aspects individually, or if we're referring to the whole thing, then we say Antakarana. If you refer to it as mind, it will cause confusion because then there is no difference between Manomaya and Vijnanamaya Kosha. So this is very important to understand. When we say Manaha, we are talking about the emotional faculty of the mind. When we say Buddhi, we are talking about the intellectual faculty of the mind. They are two different functions of the mind. So that is the subtle difference, number one. And number two difference we are going to see now, which is the topic that's going to come up.
And where does Ahankara and Chittam comes in picture in these two koshas?
Yeah, so the author has not mentioned this, as you can see. In fact, the author has not mentioned Chitta and Ahankara at all. And so that is why he doesn't need to bring it up here. So actually, I checked Viveka Chudamani also. There is no clear distinction where Ahankara and Chitta comes. So I will check again and let you know. I'll check to some other sources and let you know where exactly Chitta and Ahankara are placed.
Sure, thank you. Also, I've asked this question has been bothering me whenever we talk the prana. The prana in pranayama and the prana in pranayama kosha. Pranayama.
Pranamaya.
Pranamaya kosha, sorry. So can you differentiate what's the difference there, pranayama and pranamaya kosha?
Actually, they're not different at all. It is the same entity. It is just that here we are just defining it and leaving it. There in Pranamaya, there's more, manipulations involved, regulation of that prana, managing it, techniques of management of prana. This is just understanding. And why are we understanding? Just to eliminate it finally. So that is the difference. But they are the same.
Okay, so how do you define prana?
Prana we define as the energy sheath.
So that it's that energy what we get after food. Does that mean that prana, that energy?
It is the very energy that keeps the body alive. All the physiological functions and all that require some energy, right? Metabolism, all these things. That energy that keeps the body alive. So how do we say that trees are alive? We say that plants are also living beings, right?
Mm.
Why? They don't think, they don't talk, they don't move, but still we say they are alive. Why? Because
Yeah.
plants have a pranamaya kosha. They do not have a very well-developed manomaya or vijnanamaya kosha, but they have a sufficiently well-developed pranamaya kosha. There is some amount of energy that sustains and keeps that plant alive. So that energy we are referring as pranamaya kosha.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank
Yeah. These are things that cannot really be defined, in words.
you. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So now, the question that was asked actually here, that why, if, this is all these 5 koshas are actually the same as Shariratrayam, why are we doing this kind of classification? There is a functional basis to this particular classification. And what is that functional basis? Now we will try to understand. So, in order to act, in order to do any action, in order to do anything basically, first there must be some desire or purpose to guide that action, right? There must be some thing that motivates you to do that particular activity. And in order to have that desire to do any activity, first you need knowledge, or you need to know what to do, or you need to know basically. Okay. So to give you a simple example, suppose, I decide to go out and buy a car. So buying a car is an activity. So I'm going to go out, I'm going to buy the car. This is action. Now, to do this action, first I need to have the desire to buy a car. So I'm going to go out, I'm going to buy a car, and I want to buy a car. That is why I am doing it. Now, in order to desire a car, in order to want the car, first of all, I must know what is a car, right? If, you go back 300 years ago and you ask people there that time, do you want a car or do you want a phone? 300 years back, what will those people say? They don't want these things because they don't know that they exist. Only when you know about it can you desire it. Okay, so everything that you desire you must necessarily know. Okay, but that doesn't mean everything you know about you desire. For example, a bald man doesn't desire shampoo. He knows about shampoo, but he doesn't desire shampoo. But a person from 300 years ago cannot desire an iPhone. Why? Because he does not even know what is a phone, right? So, in order to know, in order to desire anything, first knowledge about that thing must become necessary. In other words, everything that you desire is within the limits of your knowledge only. Whatever you desire is within the limits of your own knowledge. So this is an important understanding. So first you must know, then you can desire. Once you have the desire, you act upon it. So basically, action presupposes desire, desire presupposes knowledge. These three things are important to understand. 3 steps: knowledge, desire, action. Now, this knowledge, this knowing ability, in Sanskrit, we call it as Jnana Shakti, the ability to know. And this Jnana Shakti is associated with Vijnanamaya Kosha. So Vijnanamaya Kosha expresses as Jnana Shakti, knowing ability. Okay? And once you know what happens, there's a desire born. That desire, generation of that desire is called as Ichha Shakti. Okay? Ichha Shakti, the ability to desire, and that expresses in Manomaya Kosha. Manomaya Kosha is the seat of desires, and its expression is Ichha Shakti. And when you know, what do? You act. And in order to act, you need the karmendriyas backed by the prana. You need the energy and you need the organs of action to act. And so that Kriya Shakti is associated with Pranamaya Kosha. Kriya Shakti means the ability to act, the power of action is expressed through Pranamaya Kosha. So 3 things: Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and each of them is associated with each of the koshas. And so based on this function of Ichha, Kriya and Jnana, these 3 koshas have been divided. Okay, the Sukshma Sharira is divided into these 3 based on Ichha, Kriya and Jnana Shakti. Is this clear? Not clear? What happened? Can you all hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
It is clear, Medhaji, but if there's a flow chart, I think we should create a flow chart, and that way it's easier for us to understand.
Okay, let me see. Yes. Okay, so these are the 3: Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti and Kriya Shakti. Now these 3 koshas put together, I said, is called as Sukshma Sharira. Right? Now, we have discussed this previously. So let me ask you again. The difference between a living body and a dead body is what?
Sukshma Sharir.
Okay. So you can say that Sthula Sharira, the physical body, borrows life from Sukshma Shariram. Right? The Sthula Sharira borrows life from Sukshma Shariram. Now, for a slightly out of syllabus question, where does Sukshma Shariram borrow life from?
Karana Sharira.
No. Big question. Yes, the correct answer is Brahman. It is important to, again and again, I will remind you that Sukshma and Karana are not to be thought of as separate things. Okay? They're actually not, they're inseparable. So you, we cannot really say that Sukshma borrows life from Karana Shariram. That is not correct. Sukshma Shariram borrows life from Atma itself. The Sthula Shariram does not have the power or the capability to borrow life and sentiency directly from Atma. So it requires a Sukshma Shariram. And this Sukshma Shariram is what makes a being as living or non-living. The presence and absence of Sukshma Shariram. So that is why we say a plant is living, but a stone is not living. What is the difference? The difference is that a plant has a Sukshma Shariram. It has at least a Pranamaya Kosha, which is quite developed, and a less developed Manomaya and Vijnanamaya Kosha. In animals, there is a developed Pranamaya as well as Manomaya Kosha, but a not very well developed Vijnanamaya Kosha. But in human beings, the full expression of Sukshma Shariram is possible, and that is why we have a very well developed Vijnanamaya Kosha also. We are very intellectual beings. Why? Because of a very, very well developed Vijnanamaya Kosha. And this is possible only in the human body. Okay.
So, how is prana different from Atman? I know, like it is, that's why we are negating all these, that it is not the kosha, Panchakosha also. So, I have this question. So, how do you, like how we say Stula Shariram, which is like takes birth and undergoes growth, decays, and goes back to the nature? Is there something to define even this prana also, that some characteristics of prana, like how Stula has got it, to negate it that it is not Atman?
So prana, despite being invisible, has certain things it does. When we say apana prana or samana prana, when we define these things, the invisible physiological powers, energies, they are responsible for certain things, right? They are a cause, a direct cause.
Right.
So that is one, distinction. Atma can never be the cause of anything, because every cause has an effect and then it's a movement and all that. Atma can never be a cause because it is akarta. So Atma is beyond this, and this is within the realm of what we say as Maya, Anatma. That is why.
Okay.
Moreover, another very important distinction is prana is jada, insentient. Atma is chaitanyam, consciousness. Okay, everything in creation is jada. It only borrows life and sentiency from Atma. Only Atma is chaitanyam, sentient or consciousness. But it is akarta. That is also there.
Right. So this
And if you see,
sorry, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and if you see prana and all these things, they are all jada and they are not akarta. You cannot really call them as akarta. Yes.
Okay. So, can I say that like how consciousness is all over, all pervading?
Yeah.
So prana has certain boundaries.
Yes.
Can I say
That
that
is also there.
within the tree? I can say that, right? Okay.
Yes, that is also there. It is limited, and also it is bound by time, not just space. Bound by
Okay.
time also.
So once suppose like we die and the plant dies, like it's not available anymore.
Yes.
And Gnana Shakti, can we call that as buddhi? Like it is as discrimination? Can I call it as buddhi?
Jnana Shakti is about knowing. Buddhi is about discriminating. So only after you know, you discriminate. So knowledge is the basis, the first primary thing.
Okay.
Only after you know you can decide, right? Anything. So first is knowledge, then everything else follows. So that is Jnana Shakti, the ability to know.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So with this we have finished 4 koshas. Only one more is left, and that is Anandamaya Kosha. So we will read this. Anandamayak kaha
Anandamaya
एवमेव कारणशरीरभूत
एवमेव कारणशरीरभूत
अविद्यास्थ
अविद्यास्थ
मलिनसत्वं
मलिनसत्त्वं
प्रियादिवृत्तिसहितं
प्रियादिवृत्तिसहितं
सदानन्दमयः कोशः
सदानन्दमयकोशः
एतत् कोशपञ्चकम्
एतत् कोशपञ्चकम्.
Right. So now the question is, what is Anandamaya Kosha? And in the very beginning itself, the author says, Karana Sharira Bhuta. It is of the nature of Karana Sharira. Basically, it is Karana Sharira. Some small minor differences are there. The difference is, when you go to sleep, the world is resolved only for you, right? For everyone else, the world carries on, but only for you, the world is as if not there. The world has disappeared, but for you only. This is one of the main differences, that at the time of Pralayam, everything, the whole creation dissolves. But at the time of Laya, at the time of the sleep, the world resolves, but only for you. Okay? And it is not a complete resolution of your mind. Why? Because the Pancha Pranas do not resolve. The Pancha Pranas, or the physiological systems, are still operating to keep the body alive when you wake up. But that is not the case in Pralayam. In Pralayam, the whole body, mind, the whole universe, everything is resolved. But in this deep sleep state, it is very similar to Karana Shariram, except for this minor difference. It is your own mind that has resolved, your own Sukshma Shariram that has undergone as much resolution as possible. Okay, only the Pancha Pranas remain behind to maintain the body. And so that is why the author says this Anandamaya Kosha, Karana Shariram, and the Sushupti Avastha, they are not very different from each other. Okay, so he says Anandamaya Kosha is nothing but Karana Sharira Bhuta. It is of the nature of Karana Sharira. Evam eva means indeed in this way, in this manner, Karana Sharira, it is of the nature of Karana Sharira. And then he says Avidyastha. Okay, Avidyastha. It is a technical word. The word avidya is generally translated as ignorance, but this is not the normal ignorance, just not about normally not knowing. It is a fundamental ignorance. It is Moola Avidya. And not only that, it has a very, very technical meaning that you will see much later on. It means Swataha na vidyate iti avidya. That which has no existence on its own, that is avidya. It is something of a false entity. Okay, and why it is a false entity, all these things you will see much later. Okay, Swataha na vidyate iti avidya, or otherwise also known as Moola Avidya. So it is a technical word, basically another word for Karana Shariram. And that is why the author has used it here. Then he goes on further and he says, Malina Sattva. Malina Sattva. The word Malina means tainted or impure, and Sattva. So basically, Malina Sattva means obstructed knowledge. This mind, which has the capability to know, in the deep sleep state, it doesn't know anything, right? It is totally ignorant when you go to sleep. And that is why Malina Sattva, obstructed knowledge. It is Sattvam, but tainted Sattvam. It cannot know. And in this state of total ignorance, when there is no knowledge, I don't know who I am, I don't know my own name, I don't know anything about the world, there are no thoughts, no emotions, there's absolutely nothing. It's the experience of having no experience. In that state, there is total comfort, total relaxation, and total ananda, you can say. And that is why Anandamaya Kosha. There is an experience of great ananda in the state of deep sleep. And that is what the author says in the next word. He says, Priyadi Vritti Sahitam. Priyadi. Okay. Priya, etc. Now, in Shastra, there is a classification for the degrees of happiness. And it starts with Priya. So Priyaha is the first degree. It's like happy, happier, happiest. Okay, so happy, the first degree. This refers basically to Darshana Sukham. When you see something and you are happy. For example, you are walking near a shop and it is a sweet shop. And you see the sweets and you become a little bit happier. Right? So that is Priyaha, Darshana Sukham, the happiness of seeing. Next, what? You decide to buy the sweets. So you go and you buy the sweets and you possess the sweets, right? Now you're holding the sweets in your hand. And this is called as Grahana Sukham, the happiness of that possession, the happiness of having that thing. Okay? And that is called as Modaha. So there is Priyaha, Modaha. And what is the next thing you do once you have the sweet in your hand? You eat it. And then there is Anubhava Sukham, the experiential happiness. Right? So you get a happiness out of seeing, happiness out of holding or possessing that thing, and then the actual experience of that thing, which is the final one called Pramodaha. So Priyaha, Modaha, Pramodaha. Darshana Sukham, Grahana Sukham, and Anubhava Sukham. Pleasure of seeing, pleasure of having, and pleasure of experiencing. So these three, Priya, Adi, these three. Vritti means thought, and Sahitam. So this Priyadi Vritti, this degrees of happiness, is contained within this deep sleep. It depends on the intensity of the sleep. So the author is just trying to convey the idea that the deeper you sleep, the more happiness there is. It is not a very clear distinction once you go to sleep, but the deeper you sleep, when you wake up, you say, I slept very well today. And when you have a restless sleep, then you say, I didn't sleep well today. But when you go to sleep, actually, there is the experience of no experience. So how do you know you slept well or didn't sleep well? So this is the understanding that the depth of the sleep determines the intensity of that ananda. And that is why this priyadi is contained within that sleep. Okay. And this is nothing but the karana shariram experience. And the author says this, what we described, is Anandamaya Kosha. And Etat Pancha Kosha Panchakam. So with this, we have concluded Pancha Kosha, says the author. Okay. Right. Any questions? I think time is up.
Medhaji,
Yeah.
Medhaji, can you quickly give the 5 sense organs in order, please? If it won't take much time.
Shrotram, Tvak, Chakshu, Rasanam, Granam. Shrotram is ears, Tvak is skin, Chakshu eyes, Rasanam tongue, Granam nose.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so it is important
Thank
to
you, Medhaji.
remember. Yeah, it is important to remember that Anandamaya Kosha is not very different from Karana Shariram. Okay, and so actually, even though we have said 11 portions of Anatma, it is not actually 11, it is actually just 6. Okay, these 5 are just the same 3 in a different approach. Okay, so with this, we have concluded the 11 portions of Anatma using 3 prakriyas, 3 methods. And what are those 3 methods? Shariratrayam, Avasthatrayam, and Panchakosha. So with this, we have finished the Anatma topics. And the next class, we will be discussing about Atma. Now the author has nowhere to go and try to avoid the topic anymore. He has to get to the point. So in the next class, we will be seeing about Atma. Any questions about today's topics?
Medhaji.
Yeah.
One about that Priya Adi. Can you repeat that? Like you said first 3 things and again 5 things. So I'm a little bit confused.
No, there are only 3 things. Priya, Modaha, and Pramodaha. Priya is Darshana Sukham, Modaha is Grahana Sukham, and Pramodaha is Anubhava Sukham.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I just said the same thing in English also. Priya
Yes.
is the pleasure of seeing, Modaha is the pleasure of having, and Pramodaha is the pleasure of experiencing.
Experience. Okay. Sure. So you spoke about experience a good sleep when we woke up, the Ajnanam. So are we going to talk about even the avasthas, like Jagrata?
Jagrat, all the avasthas are over. It was in the previous class.
I mean, okay, not now, like during this Anandamaya Kosha, right? Like,
No,
fine.
if you wanted to, if you want to correlate, Anandamaya correlates with Sushupti avastha.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. Sushupti, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
deep
thank
sleep.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Yes.
My name is Kumar. I'm attending this lecture for the first time.
Yes.
I found it very nice. Thank you very much. Just wanted to ask, because I don't have, anything, any knowledge of what you taught earlier, and if I want to come up to this stage of what you taught today, is there a way I can access the recordings of the previous class?
Yes. So you can leave a comment on Facebook and we will get back to you. Or if you have the number of whoever gave you the Zoom ID for this class, you can, reach out to them and get back to me. So we will guide you from there.
All right. Thank you so much.
Medhaji?
Yes.
While we were doing Avastha Trayam, we had referred to the entities in Jagrat, Swapna, and Sushupti Avastha as Vishwa, Tejas, and Pragnya. Are these the same as Vyavaharika, Pratibhasika, and Paramarthika Jiva, which Raviji referred to in DDV yesterday?
No. They are Pratibhasika, Vyavaharika, and Paramarthika are different concepts. They are orders of reality. And these three, Vishwa, Prajna, and Vaijasa, all lie within the Vyavaharika order.
Okay, thank you.
So that is a different concept.
Medhaji, I have a question.
Yes.
What is the significance of Avasthatrayam? What does it refer to? It's been taken up in all concepts, but what does it actually significance of relating it to?
The three states of experience, first of all, the idea is to eliminate them. We should not get confused that one of the states is Atma. So that is why the author very clearly dismisses them. So that is one idea. Secondly, the relationship between dream state and the waking state helps, or is an analogy to help understand the relationship between Satyam and Mithya, or between Paramarthika and Vyavaharika. So with these, with using the dream as an example, it becomes easier to grasp those ideas in future. So that is another reason why we inquire into the dream state. So we do not believe in interpreting the dream or doing dream analysis, all these things. It is merely to understand the example and then finally to dismiss it. All of
So
these,
it's just an analogy.
yes, between dream state and this waking state, that is the analogy. And of course, deep sleep state, it has its own analogies with respect to
Yeah.
Parana. So it is to understand the analogy and also finally to eliminate the three states themselves and understand that they are not Atma. If we eliminate only the body or the mind, then it is easy to say that sleep must be Atma. But the author wants no confusion. He is telling even sleep is not Atma.
Yeah. No, it's clear now. Thank you so much. This has been repeatedly talking about in satsang also. So I was like, what is the really significance of this?
Yeah, we inquire into everything just to dismiss. So that is why we don't, go into very detailed scientific, elaborate these things about all of these.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll stop for the day. Thank you all. We'll end with Purnamada. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamidachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om Tat Sat. Thank you all. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Medha.
Thank you, Medha ji. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Medha.